All right, hello. Welcome back to Technical Writing. We have today an interesting assignment, another group-based assignment. You are going to be in your senior design teams again for this one. And we are going to be writing our own request for proposal as if we are done with our project. We don't want to work on it anymore, and we want to go ahead and subcontract it to somebody else. Basically, I want you to pretend that you are giving up and you are subcontracting it to somebody else. And other than that unrealistic and silly expectation, and the fact that you would obviously fail this class if you did something like that, since that would be super duper cheating, I want you to be as realistic as you can in terms of how much money you think your project is worth, how much time you think it's going to take, what kind of deliverables you expect, and how you are going to integrate with the customer who is probably not going to be aware that you have subcontracted it. I think generally the nature of subcontracting is that the final customer is not aware that it's been done. And that's true of software as well as other industries. When you hire somebody to do carpentry for you or something, it's not always the person you hire that does the carpentry. They will sometimes hire somebody else, but they're not going to tell you that they hired somebody else. Someone else will just show up and do the job. So you're going to do the same thing. You are not going to tell the customer, which means that you still have to act as the liaison, and you still have to accept any penalties and whatnot that are going to happen. And again, I want you to estimate partially financially how you are going to do this. Now, the reason that I'm not doing a slide on RFPs is because there is no standard format for RFPs, just like there's not really a standard format for proposals. I described those kind of three sections that you usually have: a kind of executive summary, a list of what you're going to promise, and then your list of fancy pictures and justifications. It's by no means a comprehensive description of all. Sometimes people call them responses to requests for proposals. That's a really complicated and silly way to do it, but obviously the response to a request for proposal is a proposal. So I just call them proposals, but sometimes you'll see them called responses. Anyway, not a standard template, so what I'm going to have you guys do is look at the State of Ohio's website for RFPs, which is linked in the assignment description. And this is one that I pulled that's software related. It's to redesign the website for the Ohio Department of Taxation. Now, one thing you'll notice that the state does, and almost every major corporation does the same thing, so don't think this is like a weird corruption thing or something, is that there will be a list of preferred contractors. All right, and preferred contractors are basically organizations that have responded to an RFP before and not completely bugged it up. So basically, they've done a reasonable enough job that they are able to be hired again. They're all right as far as the organization is concerned. So pretty much every organization will default to giving their contractors priority, the contractors they've previously worked with priority when they have a choice. So if you are a new organization, or you've never worked with this company before and you want to establish a relationship with them, common practice is either number one, to try to seek out an RFP that doesn't have a pre-qualified contractor list. The state provides this kind of thing a lot of the time. Private companies don't. You don't know if they have a preferred contractor already. The other trick, obviously, is to make your price and services so appealing that they hire you despite the fact that you are not preferred, sometimes even operating at a loss on your first relationship with the customer in order to get into this preferred list. That is not an unusual practice. So you will often see large consulting firms do their first job at a loss. Not too often. Consulting firms know what they got, but occasionally you will see that kind of thing happen. Among the different organization names listed here, I'm not familiar with Base 22 or G2O, but I think almost everyone in the industry is familiar with Deloitte. We call them notorious or whatever, but Deloitte is a very big consulting firm in the software industry, somewhere that if you have the opportunity to work, I'd say give it a shot if you have the opportunity to apply there, because I imagine they do pay relatively well, but Deloitte is another, as are all consulting entities, organization that will routinely subcontract out the work that they receive, at least as far as I know. I'm obviously not super familiar. It's not like I've ever worked there, and it's not the kind of information that they disclose, but most consulting firms will subcontract a lot of their work to third parties. All right, so let's look into this a little bit, this RFP, and see kind of what I expect out of you. First of all, the state of Ohio's template for these things is awful. It's obviously really old. It looks like it was originally built in some kind of like Excel type thing, possibly. Everything has like borders around it. It's really bizarre. So you definitely don't have to copy their template. You can find your own. There are plenty of RFPs out there. They've got their table of contents and all that stuff, so by all means automatically generate a table of contents. You always should when you have a large document. You'll notice it's split into sections, so if you want to divvy up your work that way, split it into sections. I encourage you to do that by all means. You've got your times when the inquiry period begins and ends. You don't have to have real ones for that, but you can put something. You put your organization's name and address and all of that good stuff. They have a top-level executive summary of the RFP at the top, but you probably won't have this kind of thing because you don't have all these different government numbers and entity names and all that good stuff. You'll just have an executive summary that describes the project. But this kind of breakdown of sections, the purpose, and then the background info, those are something you can consider including. Project background and objective is probably going to be where you'll start, though. This is basically the executive summary as I described it. You'll see they got this down to basically a paragraph with some bullet points, and this is for a project where, let me see if I can find the money real quick. The government likes to bury the money. The government is not a big fan of putting the money on the first page. The government's not even a big fan of putting the money on the 7th page. They might put the money on the last page, but it's going to be the last page before a bunch of other disclosures. You know what? It looks like they don't even have a ballpark figure. They want you to submit without even knowing any expectation of their budget. That's fine. You can do the same thing for your RFP if you want. If you want to just say, just submit to this, and this is how we're going to judge the merit of your submission in terms of costs, which is what the state of Ohio does. They provide these little tables at the end with different weights. They provide a rate card you have to fill out with all the different hourly services that you're going to offer, and then they ask you to establish a total not to exceed fixed cost, and then basically pinky promise that you're going to do your best to get under budget. That's the not to exceed fixed cost is, surprise, surprise, probably what they're going to end up paying, right? But you can definitely structure your RFP the same way, where you don't have a specified number in mind. All right, after the executive summary, they have some sample links, and then they have things like the details of the current website that's being redesigned. They obviously have some nice pictures here. They show you how many views they have, all these different things. So you should probably do the same for the descriptions of your assignment. All right, I'm going to let you form up into your groups and get to it. If you have any questions, I will answer them in Discord, and I will see you guys in Discord in a minute.